Welcome to Zeitgeist Design and Production. I'm Becky Kiefer, Studio Director. Here inside the Zeitgeist Creative Studio, imagination rules and time is always of the essence. This is where immersion artists Ryan Harmon, Tom Morris, and the world's top experienced designers study the past and spin the present, envisioning the future of location-based entertainment, or what we like to call UXIRL, user experiences in real life. The Spirit of the Time Zoomcast offers a sneak peek behind the themes. Each month, we move you without a ride system, inviting one incredibly talented and influential colleague aboard our time machine. We set the controls for milestone moments in that person's career and attempt to unravel the mystery of what makes a guest experience timely yet timeless. And because we're live, you can type questions into the chat box and our passenger will answer them after the 75-minute journey. Climbing aboard our time machine today for his second flight is author, speaker, entertainment experience developer, and former president of Walt Disney Imagineering, Bob Weis. If you've ever visited Tokyo Disneyland, Disney's Hollywood Studios, Disney California Adventure, or Shanghai Disneyland, then you've no doubt been immersed in Bob's creative vision and world-class leadership. When he was just 29 years old, Bob was handed the reins to Walt Disney World's third theme park, then called the Disney MGM Studios. Since then, his star has continued to rise. He was named president of WDI in 2016. In the past year or so, he's released his autobiography, Dream Chasing: My 4 Decades of Success and Failure with Walt Disney Imagineering, and his first fiction novel, the Haunted Mansion-themed Ghost Dog. He's now writing a new book about his predecessor, beloved Disney legend Marty Sklar. It's now my pleasure to introduce our time machine pilots, Zeitgeist President and Chief Creative Officer Ryan Harmon, and today's special co-host while Joe is traveling in Madrid, Zeitgeist Executive Creative Director Tom Morris, along with the visionary behind one of Disney's best unbuilt theme parks that we're going to discuss today, Disney's America, Bob Weis.
We are back. Hello, everybody. Hi, Tom. Hi, Bob. Hi, Becky.
Hey.
We are back for the second round. And wow, Tom and I were just in Marceline, Missouri. What year was it, Tom?
1906, I think. 1905 or 1906.
1905. Yeah.
It was Walt's birthday. They were having a birthday party for little Walter.
That was so cute. And
his brothers were there and his little sister.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
In Missouri, right?
Yeah, Marceline, Missouri. And they gave away a little gift.
Oh,
yeah. I mean, they were ahead. The Disneys were always ahead of their time. They had swag back in 1906.
Wow.
Train tickets and
cool. Well, they had just moved from Chicago, from the what's now called the Walt Disney birthplace, owned by my friends Dina and Brent. Which I hope to see someday.
Walt's mother gave away these little butter knives that were in honor, or that were, Elias, the father, is very, very thrifty, actually stingy, I'll say, and won't let the family use butter. They churn butter and they sell it, but they won't let the family partake of the butter. But his mother always made sure to have a secret little knife nearby, and she would cut the butter when Elias wasn't looking and put it on the back side of the bread. So it's about to become a tradition. They don't know it yet, but it's going to become a Marceline tradition.
Right.
Wow.
So they can see the backside of
butter. Yeah. Yes.
Okay. All right. So, Bob, thank you so much for coming back aboard the time machine today. When we left off, we were at about 1993, talking about the park that Becky just mentioned, Disney's America, and the reasons it didn't happen. But I'd love for you to just share with us, if possible, some of the highlights of what we might have seen and what that experience would have been like had it been built.
Well, first, thank you all, Becky and Tom and you, Ryan. This is so much fun. I love going on the ride with you guys and traveling through time. It's a lot of fun. So Thank you, and it's great to be here just before the beginning of the holidays in our time zone. So
Yeah.
thanks to everybody for coming on. Hey, I just found my Disney's America ball
Oh,
cap. Um,
wow.
which is pretty old now. It's pretty much fallen apart. But it was a great ride. All these projects are a great ride, even when they don't happen. I think we all lament when projects don't happen, but they're a great ride when we do them. And we learn everything you learn from, right? You learn from failures as much as from successes. And so let's go back to the inauguration of Bill Clinton. That's how long this goes back.
Wow.
And I flew to Washington to go to the inauguration. I got squeezed myself into an invitation and a seat for the inauguration, went to that. And the day after the official festivities were finished, I got picked up by a couple of guys from Disney Development Company. If you remember, they were kind of the real estate wing of Disney. And they had this top secret project. They hadn't told me anything about it except that I should come to Washington. And we drove out to to this site, and it was amazing. It was like if I remember, something like 350 acres, 400 acres,
Wow.
beautiful site in Virginia with forests and streams and open land, open kind of farmland and stuff like that. And they had just like Walt Disney World, obviously a lot smaller than Disney World, but just like that, they had secured this land completely secretly.
Wow.
And the neighborhood, the city, nobody knew that it had been acquired by Disney. And then so we did an ultra fast concept, super fast concept process to come up what if you put the two words Disney and DC or Disney in America together, what would you do? And got it done in record time so that we could go announce it and show it to the governor of Virginia and the city and all that stuff. And um, that's how it all got started.
Hmm. Wow. Do you remember
Whereabouts in
what?
Virginia? Is it smack in the middle, or was it
It's just
fairly
outside.
close
It's
to
just it's
DC?
just it's just arm's length from DC. It's about a
Okay,
it's about a 30-minute drive from DC,
right.
in a place called Haymarket.
Yeah.
Um, but I think that the project was and we had Disney has had a patriotic association with America for a very long time, all the way back to Disneyland and
Yeah.
and uh, the first big project, with Abraham Lincoln to be an audio animatronic figure for the New York World's Fair, and then it came to Disneyland, and then that became Hall of Presidents and Liberty Square at Disney World. So, and I think Walt Disney was a proud American that associated with great American colonial stories with Johnny Tremaine, and there's big history, big connection between Disney and America. So it seemed natural. It seemed natural, but we had to go beyond just Hall of Presidents or American Adventure at Epcot. We had to do more. We had to create a whole park. And so we did pretty good diligence. I think we did good diligence on the creative side. We had a couple of advisors initially from the Smithsonian who we brought in who were great at advising us the aspects of history that we should cover as a Disney project. Um, but the forces against the project were quickly assembled, and they weren't really cultural forces. They were real estate forces. The direction out of DC toward this land and out beyond that in Virginia is the Virginia hunt country. And Catherine Graham, who was the head of the Washington Post at the time, lived out there. Many of the most wealthy Americans, lived out there in the hunt country, and they really didn't want all this tourism going in that direction. So even if Disney's America was a good idea, and I think many aspects of it were, um, it was on the wrong site from the beginning. And it was at a place where it was going to be fought for a long time by a lot of very influential people. And Catherine Graham, God rest her, said at the time that we were going to put a negative article about Disney's America in the Washington Post every day until they backed down.
Wow.
So when you have those forces against you, it's pretty tough to move forward. We tried, we did our best.
Who
Yeah.
had done the pre-selection of that site?
It
Was
was
it a
done by Disney's America or Disney's development company. Um, and the idea was always that Disney should be a part of the DC vacation. So this was close enough that
Oh,
if you went to DC, you went to the Smithsonian, you went to Air and Space, you did all the kind of things you do around DC, that one of those days you could spend out here. So I think it was
mhm.
a really good idea.
Yeah.
But it was probably a site that never could have worked. And unfortunately, the site is now just housing and retail outlets and stuff like that. So I'm not sure that they got anything so much better than had we done it. I think it would have been done with better quality and would have been better for the community had we done it.
Do you
Yeah.
think an outside firm like Buzz Price's, economic research group might have done a better job finding a site?
We had Buzz look at it at one point, but it was after the fact. It was after the fact.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, uh, this is probably the days, Tom, when I did meet Buzz Price. I met him a few times during the early, you probably know him better than I do, but I met him a few times during the early Eisner and Wells era. Um, but you kind of have to look at the history. This was Disney's America was going on. We were being attacked for anything, pretty much anything we said could be turned around and, be negative. Um, we were babes in the woods in terms of the site and the cultural community that could fight against it. Um, Michael Eisner had heart surgery. Frank Wells died. They had a big public breakup between Michael and Jeffrey Katzenberg. You're talking about a very turbulent time during Disney.
Yeah.
This trying to be trying to move ahead. It was tough. But there were some nice elements to it, and we did get it's kind of an unknown history, Ryan and Tom and Becky, that we did get a lot of support from the Smithsonian. And I'll tell you, everybody who's listening, who has worked in this business, has seen the museum business become much more immersive over the
Right.
last 25, 30 years, right? And
Yep.
I'm not counting all of that to Disney's America, but a lot of it came from this idea that history or science or any topic that was important to education, to kids, to the next generation, all those things, that those things could be told better in immersive environments, the kind of things we do, immersive storytelling,
Yep.
interactivity, all those things. So I think we were pioneers there, and people, the biggest thing people would say would be, well, it's going to be Mickey Mouse history, but we knew we could do better than that, and
Yeah.
we could have done better than that. And I think, if anything, the museum world has kind of caught up to that over the last 25 years or so, that it's become much more. Um, it's not that museums are theme parks. I don't believe that. What I believe is the techniques of immersive design and
Right.
storytelling have become one more tool in the tool chest of people who do immersive education. And the I
Oh,
think
yeah.
that's the positive outcome of the Disney's America story.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, there's an attraction at Puy de Faux in France where they recreated a battle of I don't know if it was, I think it was World War One in
Yeah,
France, and you are in those
you are in it.
foxholes.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's explosions and fire and people, live actors in uniform running by and gunfire, and it's because you learn from it. You're actually there. So
Well, and a lot of the criticism came from the idea that Michael Eisner had been a part of ABC when the first miniseries ever was created, uh, which was Roots.
right,
And Michael said that when they first saw Roots, they said this is either going to be huge or it's going to be a giant disaster for ABC. And so they said, let's just put it on and we'll do the whole thing in a week. We'll put it on every night. And that way, if it's terrible and people hate it, it's only a week lost.
right.
If it's huge, it'll be a huge event. And it
Yeah,
was a huge event. It was a
yeah,
huge, important event, and you had Alex Haley and Roots and the story and all that.
yeah,
And so Michael felt that we could try to do that also in a park setting. We could get people to empathize with characters in history, including, the root story and things like that. So that was the intent, but it was very easy for people to take anything out of context and say, how is Mickey Mouse going to tell the story of the Civil War or tell the story of things like that. Um, Today, I think, even though the nation is even more divided today than it was back then, I'd say politically, and everything's political, even more so now. But today, or in this era where the company also has ABC News, also had National Geographic, we probably would even have greater credibility to do a
Mhm.
project like this. Might be harder to do just in the environment today,
Yeah.
but the assets that were necessary are much more valued in the company today than they were back then.
Yeah. Do you think Disney would do a project like this that doesn't tie to intellectual property, or would they do
It's
it if?
probably a tough sell today.
Yeah.
There's been opportunities. We looked at another site called National Harbor, which is closer to DC. I ended up working on National Harbor in my consulting years. A
Oh,
great site right across from Old Town Alexandria in on the uh, the Maryland side. That probably would have been a better site for Disney to do. But at that point, the company was kind of changing and in disarray, and we didn't do it. But I know that Michael was a huge believer in the idea of bringing together American history and storytelling with Disney.
yeah.
And I think he regretted that we didn't get the project done. I was disappointed for that too.
Yeah. All
Yeah, I
right.
think
Well,
the political aspect of it would make it much more difficult than the non-IP aspect, I would think.
yeah.
Yeah, it would be much harder today. You're right,
Yeah.
Tom. And and I think, you'd have to have um, a whole slate of movies or TV shows or things that you had done that helped make it happen.
Yeah.
But it's like I said, you learn from all these things. You learn from the failures as much as the successes. Um, I'd say, at the time, it was like having your fingernails pulled off or something. It was a terrible experience at the time for all of us. It was tough. Um, but as I look back, it was what an incredible learning experience, and what, some of the contacts I have now from Smithsonian and National Archives and people that I've worked in the museum business with,
Uh,
um, have been friends for years coming out of that. So,
yeah, that's great.
and I grew up. If I set your clock back to 1960s, I
Yeah.
grew up in a family, and I wrote about this in Dream Chasing. I grew up in a family that threw everybody in a van and drove over 3,000 miles across the country and stopped at every, Mount Rushmore. You drive 8 hours and get there and get out of the car for 10 minutes, go see the mountain, get back in the car,
Right.
stay in campgrounds in the rain and in
The original
Georgia.
Griswolds.
And
Yeah.
we were the Griswolds. We were the Weises, the Griswolds. So, I grew up with this huge connection to American culture and history. And so, we enjoyed it. Rick Rothschild, myself, there's a little mini group of us that Michael Reiniger from Disney Development Company. There was a big group of believers who really tried to make this thing happen.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's set the controls for 1994. You've been
Okay.
at Imagineering for 14 years, and this year you leave. Tell us what happened.
Well, I felt that it was, we had canceled Disney's America. We had started the second park for Paris, but Paris had opened a little, um, just just a little slower than expected, and a little bit in Disney is a lot, right? As Tom will remember, and it's
Yeah.
just, you're either a blockbuster or there's a problem. There's
Right.
no nothing in between
Yeah.
at that time, especially. But Paris, the story turned out great. They ended up doing the second park eventually, um, but the second park had been put on hold. We had actually sold Tokyo Disney Seas with OLC, so it was going ahead. But I didn't know if I really wanted to move to Tokyo again, even though I love Tokyo. Um, and I decided I wanted to try some other things because I was a little bit afraid that I was you know, kind of really, really experienced, but only at Disney. So it was good timing, and I decided to do something else. And I also kind of had my, I guess my rebellion period in life, and so I said, I'm going to start my own company. It's going to be small and it's going to be, down on the beach in Florida. And I'm going to ride my bike to work. And, I'm going to go down on the beach and walk in the sand every day. And so I had this kind of like alternate lifestyle thing.
Yeah.
And my wife Diane and I, had Gabriel, and we adopted my son Gabriel, who's wonderful, is now 29,
Wow.
and working in this business. So it was a great experience to kind of escape the corporate world for a while. I don't know that I ever saw it as a permanent thing, but we got to do a lot of fun stuff. We worked on the Sony project and Metreon, with Mickey Steinberg, who had also left Disney. I got to work with Paul Allen, the co-founder of Microsoft.
Yeah.
Work on some historical projects. I got to work with the Smithsonian a little bit, after Disney's America. Um, did a lot of work for NASA at Kennedy Space Center. For in public, I wasn't flying rocket ships to space, but I was doing public information for NASA. Um, so I wouldn't try it similarly. I wouldn't trade those years. I'm not sure that it was the easiest thing to run a small company, as you know, Ryan. It's tough.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's very satisfying and it's very fun, and you get to just experiment with a lot of stuff, and that was great.
Yeah. Was there
I
a
remember
scene?
the lunch meeting that you announced your departure at
Yeah.
when you gave Marty a bottle of wine
Yes,
first,
that's right.
first as a warm up, I
As a
guess.
warm up, yeah.
Was that really the first time that he had heard that you were
Yeah,
leaving?
I went to his office. I went to his office about 4:30 in the afternoon, and I walked in with two glasses and a bottle of red wine, and he looked at me and he immediately knew why I was there. He could tell why I was there. And
Wow.
I'm writing this book on Marty. I hope you guys will like it. I just finished the manuscript. It's going to be a brick. It's about this big. For anybody listening that's a Marty fan, and you all are, I think. It's a
Yeah.
massive book. It's based on this incredible archive that we discovered about 3 years ago of all the stuff, 1,500 file boxes that he collected. This is the
Wow.
first of probably many books. But, you know, I have nothing to say except amazing gratitude to Marty. And
Mm.
so I don't think any of us ever wanted to disappoint Marty ever. And so, but he understood, and he encouraged me to come back a few years later. So I think it was good for the relationship. It was good for my own personal, whether anybody stays at Disney or leaves or stays at Universal or, wherever you want to be creatively. Um, it's kind of your own internal spirit. What do you need, right? And so I think it was great that I had that experience.
Yeah. That's cool. So you were out of there, what, 13 years, right? Because
Well, I came back shortly in the middle. So yes, I was
oh,
gone for I was gone for about 13 years, but I came back in the middle, and it was related to Disney's America because
ah,
I had been reached out to by a wonderful guy, a wonderful entrepreneur. His name is Milt Peterson, who owns this National Harbor site, which is now a great community development on the Potomac, about 20 minutes from downtown DC.
mm,
And he had reached out, and I had worked with him on the master plan of this property. It's amazing. It's got like a mile of waterfront on the Potomac,
wow.
right across from Alexandria on the Maryland side. And at one point, we thought that it would be a kind of an alternate site for Disney's America, but with more hotels, more recreation, obviously on the water, so different kind of plan.
Yeah.
So I took it to Wing Chow. We all know Wing Chow. He's an
Yep.
incredible piece of Disney's history. Um, and Disney came to the site, and Judson Green, who was head of parks at the time, came, and Wing came, and we looked at the site and we talked about it. And Disney got very interested in because Michael had never lost this dream of doing Disney's America.
Yeah.
So um, we decided that Disney was going to enter an agreement with Peterson Companies to do this on the Maryland side. And Rick Rothschild was brought in, a number of people were brought back in to look at it. And And Marty said to me, he said, if we're going to do this, your only thing is you can't do this outside. You have to work, you can't work for the developer, you have to work for Disney. And so I came back and we tried like heck to make this thing work. We worked on this version of it for another about 2 years.
Wow.
But then Paul Pressler came in, the history of that kind of shifted, and he was not interested in making the investment in DC. And it didn't matter what we did or what we did, or how positive the gains possibly were. So when that was canceled, I was like, okay, Marty, I think I came back, I did my best, but there's not really anything of interest going on for me right now. So
Yeah.
anyway, that was in the middle of that time period.
Oh, okay. So then what brought you back in '07?
Um, that's that's a bit of a, I hope it's a funny story. It's a funny story to me. I got a call. I hadn't done any work for Disney for a long time. I had done some documentaries. I had done, a lot of fun stuff outside, and I got a call from Nick Franklin. Nick Franklin, another great Disney character, had done tons of stuff in the kind of RD&E space and resorts around the world. I don't know, Tom, if you worked with Nick.
No.
Um, but Nick called and he said, we've got this project in Sydney, Australia. And I was like, oh man, I can't turn that down. That sounds because I love Australia.
Yeah.
So I went to Sydney with Nick and we saw this great site, literally in the shadow of the Sydney Harbor Bridge across the water from the famous Opera House.
Wow.
And we had a very short program. It was probably 8 weeks or something like that to develop a concept for a kind of a small Disney village with some attractions, with a lot of retail and food and fun and activities and things like that, but pretty compact on the harbor. And I did that with my company and brought in some other folks, and we got really serious with the Sydney government, and they really wanted to do it. And the economics worked, the project worked, everything about it worked. And so it was a similar thing. It was like I got a call from, at that time, now it was Bruce Vaughn and Craig Russell, and
Mhm.
they were coming in, and they said the same thing. They said, "Well, if we're gonna do Australia, you got to come back to WDI. You can't work outside. You're gonna have to come back." So I closed the company. You know how hard that is.
Yep.
When you got employees and people and stuff, but some people came with me to Imagineering. We figured out how to transition. I got back and I had an office and my boxes weren't even unpacked. I just had boxes there.
Yeah.
And I had just kind of moved back in and they said, "Okay, you've got a meeting with Bob Iger to show him the Australia project because we're moving ahead." And so and he didn't have time to come over, so I had this little model and we had some boards and took it all to the studio to his office. And I had my first meeting with him. Went great. He seemed very positive, and he's a sailor. He said, "Oh, I'd like to take my boat down there, when we have this project and all that stuff." Very, very positive. At the end of the meeting, he turns to me and he turns to Nick, and he says, "This is really great, and I'd love to do it, but the company's future is China, not Australia." And that was it. And I got in the car, and I'm going back to my boxes that haven't even been unpacked. And I actually called Craig Russell and I said,
Yeah.
"Craig, I think I've been fired before I was hired." Because here I was, I had closed the company, moved everything, and
Oh,
now obviously Bob Iger, somebody forgot to ask Bob Iger what he thought.
right.
So so Craig says, "Don't worry, we have other work, coming." And so, he said he'd call me back in a day or so, and he calls back and he says, "Well, we got a great idea for you. Instead of going to Sydney, Australia, you go down to Anaheim and try to redo DCA." And I was like, "What?" I was like, you know, I thought I was going to Australia and I was going to
Right.
have this beautiful apartment on the edge of Sydney. Instead, I'm going to be driving back and forth to Anaheim. And all I heard, I'd never been to DCA. All I heard from people was DCA wasn't very good and now
Yeah.
they want to fix it. So anyway, um, short story, Jay Rasulo met with me and uh, he said WDI's come up with this giant number. I won't say what the number was, but
Yeah.
a giant number to fix DCA and expand it and reposition some of the attractions, all that kind of thing. And he gave me another number, which was about, I don't know, 20% less or something like that. He said, if you can do it for that, we'll do it. And so I didn't really creatively get that engaged. I really started working with the team because lots of creative had been done. Tom
Oh,
Fitzgerald and Coulter Wynn had come up with a fantastic idea to redo the main entrance to turn it into a more Walt uh, oriented idea. Tom Morris was already working on Cars Land. Um,
yeah.
so we figured out how to reposition it all, but how to do it a little bit more economically. And then that thing within, I think that, Tom, was within a few months, and suddenly we're doing a press event saying we're going to spend
Yeah.
this huge amount. And I think we did it. I think we did say at the time it was going to be about 1.4 billion. It was
Yeah.
going to be substantially more to expand and reposition DCA than what had been spent to build it. We had a
Right.
bigger budget than
Yeah.
the original team did.
Yeah.
But in the course of doing that, which I think is what happens to all of us on projects, I completely fell in love with DCA. I love the park, and it was like we were the little team that could. Like we were going to make that park, the best thing for the resort. We were going to expand it. We were going to build the audience. Mary Niven is a wonderful, wonderful leader at Disneyland at the time. Eventually, George Kalogridis moved in,
Mm.
became the head of Disneyland. And we said, you know what this is? It's really a campaign. It's a campaign for the hearts of people to love this park. And so it came down to, okay, well, what's love? How do you people love Disneyland? How do you make them love DCA?
Right.
And we planted 1,200 trees. We changed colors. We changed language. We tried to make it more sincere. We did so many things that hopefully made a difference. And I remember with Bob Iger saying, we're going to tear the entire main entrance down, including all the ticket booths, the main entrance, the whole thing. And he's
Wow.
like, of all the things you have to fix here, and all the possibilities of new attractions and all that stuff, we really have to, like 7 years in or whatever it was, tear down the main entrance. And I said, well, Bob, if a movie's opening doesn't work, then you can't recover if the start of the movie, first act doesn't work.
Right.
And we really didn't think the first act worked well. And he agreed. He went with us.
Is that because it was more abstract in that
It was very
postcard
abstract and it
concept?
didn't have it just didn't, I
It
don't
wasn't
criticize
clicking.
my colleagues because they do what they do under the circumstances they do them, but it just
Sure.
didn't have the heartstrings that Main
Right.
Street has.
Right.
And so we felt that was really important. And then the other thing that was kind of controversial, surprisingly, at the time, was whether or not we should do World of Color. And I
Mhm.
was a huge proponent that we should.
Yeah.
And World of Color, I know we talk a lot about Cars Land, which was amazing. But World of Color was really the the point it changed
Mm.
because suddenly people had to go to DCA. They had to
Right.
see this show. They had to go at night. We did 3 shows a night.
Wow.
Suddenly, uh, people down there had said, "Oh, we'll never have restaurants again because nobody stays at night. Nobody, wants table service restaurants, stuff like that." And DCA's evening business exploded with World of Color.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, DCA became a place people wanted to be. And it
Mm.
was packed. The streets were packed at night, like World Showcase.
Yeah.
And Tom Staggs was in then, George Kalogridis. We decided to do uh, Carthay Circle, the big restaurant in the center. It really changed everything. And so by the time uh, the whole Buena Vista Street opened and Cars Land opened, the stage had been set. And that idea of how do we grab people's hearts had kind of come into. I remember my dad, who had not probably been to Disneyland in 20 years or something like that, um, called me at the office and he said, "How do I get into that DCA place?" I'm like, "What?" He said, "Why do you want to go to DCA?" I just read in the Los Angeles Times calendar section, there's this big show called World of Color. We got to go see it. How do we get in? You know, nobody would have believed that three
Wow.
years ago.
Yeah.
They never would have believed that.
Yeah. It was,
So
wasn't it free? If you bought a ticket to Disneyland, you got to go to DCA for free, I
yeah,
think.
you got it was DCA was always thought of as a second click,
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
second turnstile click, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't. I don't know if it was free, but it was deeply discounted.
Yeah.
But
This
Wow.
was
it kept the resort from working because
Right.
they had added hotels and they had
Um,
added the park. And the problem was
right.
DCA had some of the most popular attractions, like Soarin' was there. People loved it.
Yeah.
But they went to
Yeah.
DCA and then they came back to Disneyland. And so
Right.
DCA wasn't fully utilized, which overloaded Disneyland. And
Yeah.
you also didn't have a reason to stay in the hotels as much because you didn't stay at two parks very long. So it really opened up everything. It really changed the history of the resort in many ways.
this was
Yeah.
also the time frame when John Lasseter was a major influence
And
in some of the decision
he
making.
was a huge proponent, Tom, as you know,
Yeah,
in DCA and in building DCA. And he saw it as a great venue for Pixar with monsters coming in, Bugs Life coming in, and the work you did at Cars Land, just what really became distinctive to what DCA was. And I don't know if you remember, Tom, but the thing I remember is you and I and Kathy and a few others sitting down with the site plan. And the only thing I pushed hard on was for you to push Cars Land out further. And
right,
it kind of pushed it past. There was a wardrobe building there. And
right,
but I said we should make the street longer because what we need to do is make DCA perceptibly larger. It was too small. You could see it all in an hour, right? So
right.
you pushed it way out. We added a second street that led back up to Pacific Wharf and all that. Those are things that we did the same thing at Disney MGM after it was built. It was built too small, and so we didn't have scope. We didn't really have scope at um, uh, at the studio tour until we added Tower of Terror and Sunset Boulevard, right? Where you have, now of course you have Star Wars Galaxy's Edge and things like that. There's a certain, it sort of teaches you there's a certain minimum size to a full day experience.
We
Yeah.
certainly learned that on Hong Kong Disneyland.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
You
same
know,
thing. It was kind of
where
too small.
all the metrics were there.
Beautiful
Yeah,
park. Everything was there. Yeah.
yeah, the metrics were all there. The industrial engineers thought, hey, why does it need to be bigger? We have the capacity and all of the food and it's no, your feet have to be a little bit sore when you leave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If they're not, you didn't have enough, there wasn't enough places to see and visit.
Yeah, and there's a sense of awe, I guess, that
Right.
when you walk into Epcot, there's a sense of awe
Yeah.
at the scope and the
Right.
size and those things.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
also, what you didn't see is just as important as what you saw, because
Right.
that's what's going to bring you back.
Right,
Right.
right. And that you don't just you can't just all check it all off in a half a day.
Right.
You have
Yeah. Huh.
but all those parks, I think in retrospect, what I didn't say this, Marty said it, so I can say it. What Marty referred to as the Pressler era, where things were kind of like, if you build it, they will come. You don't have to spend so much money. You don't have to make it so large. It doesn't have to be so detailed. A lot of the learnings that Walt had on Disneyland and Marty has in the Ten Commandments, a lot of those things went away from that. And then now, if you look back, we've brought all those parks back, including the second park in Paris,
Yeah.
by adding scope, by making them a full day experience, and making a sense of why should the audience love being there? And that's the challenge.
Yeah. That's true. So let's move forward a couple years. 2009, Shanghai Disneyland is in full design. Tom and I worked on that together for a couple years,
Yeah.
and that
It
was
was
a
kind of crazy. I was in the middle of DCA. Uh, we had opened World of Color, but we hadn't opened Cars Land or the main entrance. Those were all under construction. And again, Jay Rasulo called me and said, I think you're going to get bored. And I said, no, I'm not. We're trying to reinvent this place and and it's operating at the same time.
yeah,
It's great, but it's a lot of work. And he said, "Nah, I think you're going to get bored. If you remember Jay's personality, I think you're going to get bored. I think you need another job." And I said, "Well, what is it?" I said, "I think you should keep on the DCA stuff, but I think you should take over the design of Shanghai Disneyland." And I
Wow.
was like, it was kind of like a Sydney thing. I was like, how could I turn that down?
Right.
Um, so that was a hairy time that you're talking about. If I go back with you in the time machine to that era,
Yeah.
because DCA was going on and we were designing Shanghai at the same time, it was a tough time, but it was exciting. It was
Yeah.
exciting. I was doing a lot of travel to Shanghai and back, and um, another exciting adventure.
Yeah. So what happened in 2012 with the Bobby Brooks interdisciplinary studio at Cal Poly Pomona? Um,
Well, I came in one Monday morning. Sure, Tom was there too. And word was suddenly around that Bobby Brooks, who was an incredible icon at Disney, incredible architect, wonderful designer, and just a beautiful human, a great collaborator,
yeah.
nice gentleman, that
Yeah.
he had died tragically in a motorcycle accident.
Wow.
And I didn't even know how to react. We were all so shocked, and his office was there, right there on the first floor of the Mapo building. And it was just a sense of loss of this incredible young man. Uh, and so I remember talking to Craig Russell, who was also very, of course, moved by it too. And Bobby had come out of Cal Poly like I did,
Mm.
and I said, well, why don't we try to do something with Cal Poly? We need to do something for Bobby's legacy. And so we talked to Cal Poly not long after the memorial and everything had gone through. And I had met Bobby's wife, and we said, well, what about a living legacy that we could do with Cal Poly that honors Bobby's memory, but does something to advance students with that memory? And that was the founding of the Bobby Brooks studio, which
Mm.
annually, I think it's past now 10 or 11 years now, been going on. Annually, there's a problem that is given to a set of students, and they have a certain amount of time to do a really intense charrette. And, it could be an urban problem, it could be a Disney problem, it's a variety of things over the years. And they get mentored. Tony Baxter spent lots of time there. I know you have, Tom. I have, a number of us have gone out to Cal Poly to work with students. But it's when I think about it, I think of Bobby and his intense creativity in that. Now, students and Imagineers who didn't know Bobby know it as a kind of a name and a program, but it has been a great way to keep his spirit alive, I think.
Wow. That's amazing. So then Shanghai opens in 2016, and you follow in the footsteps of very few iconic, legendary people and become president of Walt Disney Imagineering. What was that like to take over that company?
Well, the only thing he did is he skipped a little bit in getting
Oh,
Shanghai done, and that
oh,
was that
sorry,
was a
sorry.
no, 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 it's okay. All I wanted to say about it was
Yeah, please.
it was a tough slog for the team. It was a
Yeah,
rough project on a lot of people,
yeah,
and we were doing the probably the most technically sophisticated park we'd ever done in the least sophisticated construction market we'd ever been in,
right.
and where there was no history with the contractors or with the vendors or anything. And so the team on that really had an intense few years. But we were about 6 months from opening when Chapek came in to Parks, and Tom Staggs moved to president, and Chapek asked me if I would lead WDI. And I still had to be in Shanghai for the next 6 months. So that was rough. But you know, to have a chance to both think about Imagineering a little bit, a classic, organization, a creative organization, but also, learning from Marty, it's there's periods when when Imagineering kind of goes under attack, by, and it certainly was under attack at the time,
Mm.
by aspects of the parks, by Bob Chapek for being, inefficient and uh, internally organized, for just creativity and didn't care about the audience and all that stuff. None of which was true.
Yeah.
There's nobody that cares as much about the parks, the operations. I mean, Tom Morris and I both came out of operations, but most Tony did, so much of
Yeah.
us, we love the parks and we love the parks to be great. Um, so, uh, so I kind of did this thing where I wanted to enliven and enrich Imagineering, but at the same time, I wanted to show that Imagineering could function as a business. And it was there, but we had to kind of shift the tone. We needed people to partner better with the parks. We needed to be more efficient. We needed to, I'd say, not be specialized at everything. There are some things that we could be more commercial at, and we could be more specialized at other things. We had a new set of cruise ships came in, and for all the criticism people give of Chapek, he greenlit billions and billions of dollars of work.
Yeah.
So, we were having to do a lot of work and do it well. So I think we did a lot. I think we did a lot to not just not just be more businesslike from a corporate standpoint, but also to retain the creativity, to still have open house, to still have, the things that were signature aspects of Imagineering's creativity. So that's
Yeah.
what I was trying to do anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
And you think, okay, this is what I thought when I was in Shanghai. I said, okay, I just did this massive Shanghai project, and that's billions upon billions. So if I just multiply that by three, that's about what Imagineering is. So that seems reasonable, right? If you have a couple of great people like Tom Morris and Tom Fitzgerald and people like that, and
Yeah.
you have great people in ride, and you have great people in architecture, it doesn't feel like it should be that hard. This is me talking to myself. It's pretty
Yeah.
stupid, right? Um, and then what happens is COVID.
Oh,
And
right.
so exactly the opposite. It's like the thing you never expected
Yeah.
and have no experience at becomes the thing that's going to define what it's all about.
Right.
So suddenly, every park is closed, every ESPN event is closed, every
Wow.
retail store is closed, every hotel is closed. The
Yeah.
the the cruise ships are moored,
Yeah.
and now it's like, now what do you do? So it became, you know, okay, how do you furlough almost the entire company?
Wow.
And then who do you keep back to try to, because you got to close down all these construction projects, you got to close everything.
Wow.
Um, and at that time, we really didn't know if we were closing it and it would never open again.
Right.
We didn't know,
It was
we didn't
supposed to
have
be
the
two
slightest
weeks.
idea. Yeah. And
Right.
so people were amazingly frustrated, amazingly sad. But we somehow figured out a way to, rethink of construction. We started construction again with crews that were half the size of what they were before because you couldn't have people working so close together. You had to
Wow.
educate construction workers and Imagineers about masks and do COVID tests all the time. But slowly we got everything done. By the time I left, with the exception of a couple of projects in Paris, by the time I left, we did all the work that we had committed to do. That
Yeah.
all had stopped during COVID. We got it all done, including Tom knows the castle in Hong Kong. We renovated that, made it
Yeah.
much bigger and an icon for the park and entertainment. We redid Splash to become, Tiana's. We did tons of stuff. We did Frozen in two parks at once. We turned on huge amounts of work, but I could tell you during those, 8 hours a day of Zoom calls, starting at 6 in the morning, in Paris, and then going to Florida, and then going to LA, and then going to Hong Kong and Tokyo. At that time, we didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't
Yeah.
know what's going to happen. Where are we going to bring all these furloughed people back? Will they ever come back?
Plus
So,
the prospect of moving to Florida, moving everyone to
well,
Florida.
then, then that Tom brings up an important point is
Yeah.
we're just wiping the sweat off from COVID, feeling
Right.
like we've done such a great job. We've managed ourselves back. We've got all these great projects opening. And COVID was something that was handed to us by fate, right? COVID wasn't our fault. It just got
Right.
handed to us
Right.
like the rest of the world, right?
Right.
And then the way I felt about the company moving to Florida was that's handed to us by ourselves.
Right.
That's just, you know, misguided. And I had tremendous negativity about it from the time because I felt, and the reason was because I felt that the reason Walt started Imagineering in Glendale, and you know this better than me, Tom, you talk about it, is he could get in his car and he could be at Imagineering in 5 minutes. And it was
Hmm.
his personal R&D lab, and it was Card Walker's, and it was Michael Eisner's, and it was Bob Iger's. And the whole idea is you're a half an hour flight to Pixar, you're a 5 minute drive to animation, to Disney Studios, to Disney's Channel. That my vision as president of Imagineering was we are one of the golden geese of the company, just like Pixar, just like animation, all those things.
Yeah.
And the idea that we would become some sort of offshoot in Orlando away from the corporate center just never set
Right.
never set with me. And
Yeah.
thankfully it was abandoned. But it was a Tom remembers it was a dark chapter.
We
Yeah.
lost some good people, I think.
We lost a
Yeah.
lot of good people over
Yeah.
it. And
Yeah.
I think it was because it was a real moral battle. It was like this is what Imagineering's role in the company is. It's to be central to the thinking. And thankfully Bruce has it back there. I think it's settled back in the right place, but it was tough going.
Yeah. Hmm. So
There's
back
some
to
places in the time machine I don't want to go back to, and that's one of them.
so going back to Shanghai
I'd
really
rather go
quick.
back to 1955 when Disneyland opens than
Right.
forward to when we're talking about moving the company to Orlando.
Yeah. Those dark days. Um, but going back to Shanghai, just some of the creative choices. Why is it people always wonder why is there no railroad train? It's really one of the only, isn't it the only Magic Kingdom that doesn't have a
It's the
train?
only Magic Kingdom without it. Um, you know, there's trains all over China. Um, and we we did we did focus groups. Tom was involved in a lot of the early planning stuff. We did a lot of focus groups about the Old West and the West and things like that. And I love Hong Kong Disneyland and everything that Tom and Chris Carey and everybody did with that originally. And it feels like it's a kind of a classic Disneyland design.
Mhm.
Um, but we were already dealing with the fact that the railroad becomes a logistical challenge sometimes when you got to go over it or under it and things like that. And it just didn't seem like it was as important to that generation in China as other things. And
Mhm.
so and we decided not to do the Old West. We decided not to do Frontierland or Westernland.
Yeah.
So as much look, I have a giant HO train in my garage. I am a train nut. I love
Yeah.
trains.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm going I'm going if you want to come over, I'll be at Walt's Barn signing books on December 21st,
Oh, cool.
on their last day of the operating year, going over to congratulate all the incredible volunteers who preserve Walt's Barn at Griffith Park and all that. But so I'm a train nut, but I just decided it wasn't a priority.
Mm.
And so I take total responsibility. In retrospect, I don't think it lacks anything in Shanghai.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
doesn't mean it's not magical everywhere it is. Um,
Yeah.
Well, also the government officials weighed in very heavily on a lot of the,
yeah,
attraction menu items.
Oh,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and
And their viewpoint was exactly what Bob said,
yeah.
that even though a Disney train is certainly a lot more special than any other
Sure.
train, to
Right.
them,
Yeah, I was very interested in trying to do um the first park was kind of like a they took Hong Kong program and they kind of expanded it.
Yeah,
And so they plussed up stuff. But they didn't really make it into a bigger park. They just kind of plussed it up. And I wanted to do um I really wanted to do pirates because the Pirates films had been so successful in in China and things like that. So we were trying to prioritize what day one was, and reinventing Pirates became really important. Doing Tron became really important.
yeah,
Um, Doing Adventure Isle, those things. So um, at some point, you're trying to make this whole mix work, and I guess we opted for more of the reinvented things.
yeah. Okay. Um, so let's see. So 2021, you are announced as the Global Imagineering Ambassador, which I believe also followed the footsteps of Marty.
Yeah.
So what were you doing in that role, and what changed that you were no longer president?
Well, I think a lot of us, including me, were were worn down by COVID. We're worn down by the potential of the move to Orlando. And I
Yeah,
felt like it was time to kind of do something different. I had started to write a book with Disney Publishing, not seriously, but I had started. And I was becoming really interested in my writing and interested in, I guess, a transition to a quieter role. And
yeah,
so I went to Josh and said, "This is what I'm thinking, and I think it's time for new management for Imagineering, and time for me to, move on, and I'll play the ambassador role for a while and finish the book." And um, a tough decision to make, but
yeah,
um, I was I I assume I was about 64 or 65, and it was like, okay, it's time for, that transition. And maybe I discovered happily, Ryan, that I love writing. And so I've, done two books. I've just finished a third with the Marty book, and I have a couple more lined up. So it was really a good transition for me. I
yeah,
really am happy about it. And I'm happy to still have all the connections and the friends at Imagineering and be connected whenever I go to any place, Tokyo or Shanghai or whatever. I always visit the parks and meet with cast members and meet with management. And, it's really fun. I'm not the official ambassador anymore, but I
right.
think the book has kind of made me an unofficial ambassador.
Yeah,
So in retrospect, as I look back, it was a tough decision, but I'm really glad. I think the timing was good. Um, and I felt like, okay, you've done all this, you came out of COVID, you've done work in all the parks. What's your next thing? I mean, I think Marty, this is from my writing Marty's biography. I think Marty never knew when to hang it up. He kept thinking, well, I'll wait till Hong Kong opens, then I'll wait till Shanghai opens. So,
right.
and it's, you know, I didn't, I certainly wasn't going to stay there until I was 75 years old or 80 years old. So,
Yeah,
I'm glad that I did the transition, and I'm grateful. I'm truly grateful for the opportunity to write the books. So I'm pretty happy. I,
yeah,
I, I feel I feel like embarrassed to say how happy I am because I really like this. I really like this life, this
yeah.
author's life.
That's awesome. And you had a short time at Gensler as well, um, bringing in more of the themed entertainment type.
Yeah, the interesting thing, Andy Cohen and I had known each other, who's at the time was CEO of Gensler. Um, Now he's head of the board, but there's no such thing as Andy retiring.
Uh,
Um, but I had always respected Gensler, and coming out of COVID, I think the number one thing that I was concerned about, which Disney was not moving into, this is one of the reasons why I also became ambassador, because there were some new projects I wanted to do that it was clear to me that Disney was not going to take the leadership role in urban projects yet, anyway.
mm,
The kind of things like Netflix House and things like that. And
right.
so I was interested in moving to Gensler and helping them move into what are we going to do with all these downtowns around the world, especially around the US, that are kind of destitute post-COVID. And
Hmm.
so that was what drove me there. And I wanted to write the books, but I also wanted to be involved in that. The first contract we got was with Netflix for Netflix
Oh,
House,
cool.
um, to help develop that concept. Um, and I got to know a lot of really interesting people in other businesses, like people who are really serious into major hotels and retail projects and sports projects. Disney has a giant sports business, theaters and events and things like that. So I had a really great time, and I got to meet a lot of people around the world because of Gensler's reach, 52 offices around the world. Um, but similarly, there it was, okay, the book's coming out. You can't do both. You gotta, you gotta write the books and also promote the books and be everywhere that you have to
Right.
be. I've been traveling, as you know, nonstop for a year with
Yeah.
Dream Chasing and Ghost Dog. So it was a great experience. It was about almost 2 years at Gensler. Um, Great experience. And one of the fun things about it is I was in London a couple months ago, and I needed to finish. I had a deadline with Disney Publishing, and I needed to focus. I was just kind of on a book tour and vacation. I called the Gensler office, and I'm like a Gensler alumni. It's really nice. They set up an office for me. They had me come over. I worked there for
Wow.
4 days, got the book finished, met people, signed books. Wherever you go, it's kind of nice. You go to Paris. I've been to the Tokyo office. It's a nice community. The Genslers are a really great community, but it's
Yeah.
it's also the consulting world, as you know, and as I learned from Design Island, and it's even bigger with Gensler. Consulting world is a grueling world. It's a lot of work and it's constant. It never goes away. So
24/7.
eventually, I had to decide. The same thing I had decided 2 years before is like, do you want to focus on books or not? And
Right.
I said, well, I've got a unique opportunity, so that's what I want to do.
Yeah. That's great. And then tell us a little bit about your teaching and giving back all of this amazing wisdom you've accumulated over the decades. You were involved with SCAD in South Carolina.
One of the best, most interesting schools I've ever been to is the Savannah College of Art and Design.
Savannah, sorry.
And Paula Wallace, who created it, is a real visionary. But what she did is when she decided she wanted to start a school, she kind of took over downtown Savannah bit by bit. And she took all these it kind of ties to the mission I just said about the Gensler thing, is that these derelict buildings that nobody knew what to do with, historical buildings and industrial buildings, she slowly took them over and made them into the school.
Wow.
And so SCAD is not a campus contained in one area, but it's kind of distributed all through Savannah.
Oh,
And if SCAD was not in Savannah, I'll bet the average age in Savannah would be like 75. It would be an old, sleepy southern town, that a lot of retirees live in. And SCAD, because it's there, brings this incredibly vibrant student population of artists, and it has departments in fashion and furniture design and theater and film and now, theme park, theme design. So I've had a great time. I started out as an academic advisor, and I helped them evaluate programs against kind of what we all would consider industry standards. And that's been great. And then I helped them put together a BFA, a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Theme Entertainment Design. They had a master's, but they didn't have a bachelor's program. And that launched in September. So now
mm,
SCAD has a great uh, program that you can go in bachelor's all the way up to an MFA if you want. Um, and you have the opportunity to be in a school that also has animation and game design and you know museum design and theater and film and all these other things. Um, so for the launch, which was in September, um, I agreed that I wanted to be down there for the launch. So I spent about 6 weeks in Savannah this fall, and I taught. I actually taught in the classroom. Um, 6 of those first 8 weeks, they're on a quarter system, but it was very exciting. I got to know, I guess, 30 students very closely. We had 2 classes back to back. They had a very challenging project. They're all tremendously talented, passionate, like you were, Ryan, when you first came to Imagineering.
yep.
Yeah, you still are, but when you first came in.
Thanks.
Um, so it was great working with the students and helping them do really their first major portfolio project.
Hmm.
Um, but it was great. It was great. I was committed to it, and I only needed to do it for one quarter. It's not my new career.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. I probably have these students now as friends for a long time,
Oh,
but I'm now buckling down and I'm back to work on getting the Marty book done and getting the next set of books done. But for all of us who have, a lot of us in this business have kids now who are getting to the college age or they're trying to figure out what they want to do.
hmm.
SCAD is a really unique university and also has another campus in Atlanta, and a really committed mission, to put students in the context of history and art and so many things. It's really unique. If you ever have a chance to go, anybody, it's a really a great college.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm going to continue as their advisor,
Yeah.
but now I'll go back to my regular schedule, which is I just go once a quarter, once a,
Great.
and then they have a campus in Lacoste, France, and I get to go there once a quarter, once a year too.
Nice.
There you
So
go.
it's not bad. It's not bad.
Take
That
us
sounds
with
good.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, really.
Guest speakers.
It's
Well,
great.
do
It's an amazing campus in an old hill town in Lacoste,
wow.
and people they do one quarter abroad there. So there's film students, animation students, theme design students, architects that do at different times of the year will go and do a quarter there. It's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Wow. So, Bob, of all the places you've traveled and all the attractions you've seen everywhere, is there one non-Disney park or attraction or project that really stood out to you that you wished you'd been involved in or that you just went, wow, you know?
Well, I love to go to projects. I love to go. I was just at Epic. We were talking about that. I was just
Yeah.
at Epic at Universal a few weeks ago, and with some of the folks who worked on it. And it's an amazing park. I appreciate the work we all do. And as we talked about a little bit this morning, Ryan,
Yeah.
there's a talent base that is focused on innovating in the themed immersive experience business.
Mhm.
And we move from place to place. So, you know, there could be people on Epic that have worked on Disney projects and people on Disney projects that have worked on Epic or have worked in different parts of the world. So we I credit the TEA in many ways for
Mhm.
creating an environment where we're all unified. On the outside, you think, oh, Universal and Disney and other parks, they must be huge rivals, right? But we're not. We're all the same community. We're a
Right.
creative community that only cares about the appreciation of the work we do, and the development of the work we do, the
Sure.
pushing it forward, right? So,
But it wasn't like that,
but it
back
wasn't
in the
like that
80s
before.
and 90s.
I had lunch a week or two ago at IAPA, the theme park convention, with
Right.
Bob Ward.
Mhm.
Bob Ward and I got together for lunch. We were arch enemies. We were,
Yeah.
he was building the Universal Studios, and I was building
Right.
Disney MGM Studios.
Yeah.
And now we're just like we're having a great time and talking about history and talking about all the work we've done, and we have a great time together. That's the way it is now. But you're
Yeah.
right, it's different.
Yeah.
But
There
it
was,
also means that the TA is capable of going out and seeing somebody's work that's in some small little theme park and outside of Amsterdam or somewhere that
right.
that the world may not have heard about, but has done an incredible job, right? So I think that's a great service that the TEA has done to unify us, to recognize people for great work,
Yeah.
to help people surface in the business. Long way to answer your question. I love to go see other stuff. I
Yeah.
thought Epic was incredible, and incredibly well done. My favorite site is probably Walt Disney's favorite site, which is Tivoli. I love
Yeah.
Tivoli. Um,
Tom and I went there together.
Yeah.
yeah. First of all, I love Copenhagen. Second
Yeah.
of all, I love Tivoli, and so Tivoli's probably, I love real places too. I love Rome and I love London and uh, but as in terms of a place you go to listen to music and do rides and have fun and beautiful lighting and magic and all that stuff, it's pretty tough to beat Tivoli, and you can see how much it influenced Walt Disney, during that time, obviously. So
Yeah.
Tivoli's probably the one I'd vote for. But I love to go to the quirky places too, and I love museums. I love to go to museums. Both of my children have grown up going to museums, and I've been instilled with a love for, the British Museum in London, or places in Rome, and the Louvre, and Victorian Albert and the Smithsonian, and they are full day experiences.
Oh yeah.
So I love all those, but probably Tivoli, if I had to vote for one that we could all go to right now and go hang out and have a great
Right.
time and have a beer on and it's there's something about the fact that it still is DG, which is, for those that don't know what that is decomposed granite compressed.
Yep. Yep.
It's not all neatly tied together by colored concrete and pavers and
Right.
stuff like that. It's really an event space. It's like the Tuileries in Paris. It's places that are just real. It's really
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. So the last question we ask everybody who joins us on the time machine, Bob, is again, with all of your wisdom and experience over the decades, what is it that you think makes a theme park, any type of immersive or guest experience, relevant today and timeless, well, timely, yet with heart, with emotion, something you want to return to over and over again, and timeless? What what does
Well,
that?
first of all, I don't have any wisdom, Ryan. I have experience,
Experience.
and I have the benefit of everyone that we've all worked with together. And every time I think about a new project, or somebody calls me and they say I have a project and want to have some advice on who they should get or how they should go about it, it's always a new game to me. It's always, I always feel like you have experience, but everything's a new problem, right? So
Mhm.
there is no magic key or anything like that to anything. But I do think that sincerity is important, and being sincere about the storytelling and taking it seriously.
Mhm.
That if I go back to when I used to be behind a ice cream wagon at Disneyland for a couple summers, you'd be standing there, and let's say you're in a bad mood. Let's say you had a bad night last night and you're not feeling good, and you have a project due, and you had to go to Disneyland to work, and you're standing there, and you look, and there's a family there, and they have a kid who's like in a wheelchair, looks like they've been through some kind of illness, and you realize they probably waited and planned this trip to that day when they
Mhm.
could finally make it, right? And you are the ambassador of their experience. Or people who come there, and you're the steward of their own family history, that they came, their parents took them, now they're taking their grandparents. That I think you have to take the experience as earnestly and genuinely as you can. And
Mhm.
that's what goes back to the DCA experience, I think, is that what what's the tangible experience of having people love a place? Why do people go back to Times Square, or back
Yeah.
to Tivoli, or back to the Spanish Steps in Rome? Any place like that that people really truly hold in their heart, that's what it is.
Yeah.
And so um, none of us who are in this broader world of theme design, I think, take that responsibility lightly. We really take it seriously, and that's what's great about all of us and all of our colleagues. I think is we take our storytelling very seriously, very earnestly, even if it's funny and fun. We take it seriously,
Yeah.
and it's and it's the other thing about it is collaboration. It's being open to working with people who think completely differently than you do. It's
Mhm.
not like the architectural business. We've seen, some great, Bob Stern and uh, Frank Gehry, great architects, pass recently, where it's all about the architect and their vision, right? Brought to a city. And I see Dave Stofsek is on the phone here, is one of the greatest architects I've known in my life and an incredible icon at Disney. But Dave works in a world where his talents are part of a collaboration of many people, of storytelling, of design, and all those things. And you have to love that as in this business. You have to love collaboration because these places are built upon the imagination of many people working together. And Walt saw that. Walt had this, he was at the beginning of it, but he came over to Imagineering because he had this quirky little group of people from Bob Gurr to, to Exitencio to Claude Coates to, you know, Harriet Burns and, that there's this quirky little group and somehow through all of them, he's going to carve this thing out,
Yeah.
and so you have to love that kind of collaboration. And that's what makes the places great is the the confluence of all those creative minds.
That's true. Well, Bob, thank you so much for two amazing
Great
Wow,
questions.
questions.
thank you.
Tom and
Thank
I.
you.
Super fun and insightful.
30
And
years from now, I'll be happy to do another one.
hopefully we'll all still
After
be
your
around.
12th book.
After my 12th book. Yeah, exactly.
You'll only be on 12 in 30 years.
No, I'm really appreciative of you, Ryan, and Tom
Thank
and
you.
Becky and Joe for making this show. I think it's great. It's fun to do. Anybody has a chance, do it. It's fun.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Tom, one thing I didn't tell you about this time machine is not only does it move through time, but it's interdimensional. And I think you and I right now should go to see Disney's America in another dimension where it is a huge success. We'll have
Wow.
to figure out which location they ended up doing it. But
I've already done it.
you have, you have. Well, you were a lot younger
It's
then.
great.
I'm putting my Disney's America hat on to get ready.
Yeah, let's all go. That'd be fun. All right. Well, everybody, thank you and happy holidays. Happy New Year. Becky's going to take over and we will see you in 2026. Stick around.
All right. Well, we hope you guys enjoyed the ride. Thank you so much to our good friend Bob Weis for time traveling with us today. And if you have questions for Bob, stick around for our live Q&A in just 60 seconds. I already see questions in there, so thank you. On behalf of Zeitgeist Design and Production, we thank you for spending your Friday afternoon with us on the Spirit of the Time Zoomcast. If you enjoyed the journey, please check out all 48 of our time travel
Wow,
adventures
48.
on our YouTube channel or under the Zoomcast section at zeitgeist-usa.com. And they're also available as podcasts wherever you listen. Keep an eye on our socials this month as we'll soon announce our 49th passenger coming in late January 2026. We wish you the happiest of holidays and hope you get to enjoy all the latest and greatest immersive experiences in 2026. Happy New Year, everybody, and thanks so much for your continued support.
Get it.